Today on TOKKANTE, we are doing kind of our first FAQ video. It's gonna be FAQ singular because I only have one question to answer surrounding watch winders. So, I have a lot of people coming to me, either colleagues or friends or people who are new to this hobby and email me and say, hey Ben, what watch winder do you use? Or do you even use one? Or should I use one? Or hey, I just got this new watch and should I put it on a watch winder? Or the question, I just bought a Rolex. Does a Rolex, require a watch winder? So we look at all this, and first we look at watch winders, whether they're good or bad, or what people actually use them for, and then second, the actual only 3 good reasons to use a watch winder. Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Ben. So watch winders, are they good? Are they bad? What do people actually use them for? So good versus bad for the movement. You get a lot of opposing opinions out there, but not so much proof. So for example, some people say it's good to avoid the oils in the movement from congealing or settling in the movement. Some people will tell you, well, it's bad because it puts too much stress on some movement parts. And then some others will tell you, well, a watch needs to rest, so you need to take it off the watch winder sometimes. So if you ask around, actually, you will get many different opinions. If you go on forums, and I've asked some watchmakers, usually they will agree that it's not necessarily bad for a watch, but they will not always use one either for all their watches. So what do people actually use a watch winder for? I find that there are mainly 4 different reasons. The first one is for display. Some people want to show off their collection, okay? When people go to their home and they want to show off all their watches. So I've seen people who actually even put quartz watches on a watch winder just because it's a nice way to display their collection all at once. The second reason is that it's just a nice accessory to have. It's part of the hobby, if you will. Some people will have a nice mat so that when they take their watch out and they clean it, for example, they put it on an expensive mat. Some will have very expensive watch tools and they will have a whole collection of Bourgeon tool and professional tools. Some will have, very expensive watch boxes or, gloves or etc, etc. It's just part of the hobby. Once you get into watches, you get into the whole ecosystem. So they also get a watch winder because it's part of it. The third reason is for the actual storage. People want to get a watch winder because they want to store their watches just like they would get a watch box. Some watch boxes, like watch winders, can be handcrafted and beautifully made, and they're just beautiful objects to look at. They can be very expensive, and so they want to store their expensive watches in a nice expensive watch winder. And the fourth reason is just plain ignorance, I think, because some people have no idea why they should use a watch winder, but because they have mechanical watches, they just think, well, they have to go on a watch winder, they should not stop, and so they just put all their watches on a watch winder. Now let's look at the actual 3 good reasons, and I would even venture to say the only 3 good reasons why you should want to consider to use a watch winder. So the first one is complication watches, especially calendar watches. If you have a complete calendar, if you have an annual calendar, or if you have a perpetual calendar, those watches can be a pain to set. Annual calendars should be set only once a year if they keep running continuously. But then if the watch stops, what is the point to have an annual calendar? Complete calendar should be set 5 times a year, and perpetual calendar should never be set until like the year 2100. But if any of those watches stop, basically you have to reset that completely, and some of them, like the complete calendars, can really be difficult to set with pushers in the case, and it can be quite a pain. Now the other type of watches is watches with moon phases, and usually moon phases come with perpetual calendar or complete calendar. Moon phases also can be very difficult to set, and it's not convenient, and you have to look at the actual moon phase. And so for these type of watches, calendar watches, moon phase, complication watches, it's a good idea to leave them on a watch winder so that you can just pick it up and go, and it's always set and ready to go. Now the second type of watch that you would want to consider leaving on a watch winder are finicky vintage watches, especially watches that have a fragile stem, the crown stem. Those type of watches, you don't want to be playing with them all the time. If you're gonna wind them every morning, or if you're gonna set the date or set the time, and they tend to be a little fragile, you need to handle them with love and care. So this type of watches, actually, it's a good idea, even though it's counterintuitive, to leave them on a watch winder, so you just don't need to touch them too often. And the third reason to use a watch winder is just out of convenience. Especially, for example, for watches that don't have a quick set date. Like this one. I'm wearing my Seiko Sumo, and this Seiko Sumo does not have a quick set date. And you know what? The date is never set on this watch because I just couldn't be bothered to set it. It takes forever, especially if we're on the 2nd and it's actually the 23rd or something. It takes too long. I just set the time, I wind it, and I go. So for this type of watches, it's a good idea actually to leave it on the watch winder, so that you don't have to spend like 10 minutes setting the date every morning or whenever the watch stops. But even if the watch has a quick set date, maybe out of just plain laziness, if you don't want to have to set your date all the time, you don't wear your watch over the weekend and it stops, and you pick it up on Monday morning and you have to set the date, so you may want to leave it on a watch winder for that. So in conclusion, there are only 3 valid reasons why you should consider using a watch winder with your watches, okay? Number 1 is grand complications, such as perpetual calendar, or complications such as, complete calendars, mostly calendars and moon phases. The second one is finicky vintage watches, and the third one is out of convenience, especially for no quick set date. And that's it. Okay, personally, I don't own a watch winder, but I am considering actually getting one, especially for the Sumo, or even maybe for my day, just because I just don't like setting the date even though it's a quick set. I'll be doing a video in the near future on some of the best watch winders around, from the more affordable one to some of the very exclusive and premium ones. But until then, don't forget to click like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, send over your questions if you have some, so we can do more than one question in the next FAQ video. And until then, don't forget to always ask yourself, what makes you tick? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.